he shouldn't have been there. I mean, anyone who was there after curfew shouldn't have been there. It's a riot. It's not. It's why are you there? It doesn't make sense. If you're peddling these conspiracy theories about the judge and about how the system is broken, I don't know if I would necessarily call that stochastic terrorism, but you're getting to some iffy territory, I think. So I don't know if I would draw that line there, but I think I think you're doing some bad stuff there. Would you?
I mean, most people think that systems are broken in one way or another. I mean, I guess liberals are kind of the ones who think that the system is working, but
I feel like you have to be somewhat radicalized if you're getting to the point where you are showing up and putting your life in danger with, and bringing an AR as someone who is 17.
There was a tweet I saw of you where you said, you have to be an effing idiot to side with the dude who brought an assault.
What's up?
Sorry, I just now saw that it said guest request. I haven't been on TikTok Live in a long time, so I didn't know how they changed it since I've been on here.
Yeah, that's all good. I didn't know if we were on or not, just because I hadn't gotten like at 100% confirmation.
Oh, my bad.
No, it's all good.
Okay, so I want to start out by making some clarifying statements because I know it got a little heated. Okay, So first off, and I know you probably won't dispute this, but I just want to be clear on where I stand. I don't support Kyle or say he's a hero. I just support his right to self-defense. So I just want to say that. I know that's not necessarily what we're talking about, but just in case. And then I want to make clarifying statements about what I said about you and other people. So I don't think I ever said necessarily that you were like doing stochastic terrorism or something like that. My main criticism of you, which was really just a criticism of people all over the left online in general, which was that I find it very, very odd that there are so many people on the left that are willing to make some type of statement about the Kyle Rittenhouse case, but then they won't talk about it, which is weird because there's a lot of these same people that would talk to me about other things earlier, especially this year. I just find that very odd.
I think one of the reasons that I wasn't like wanting to talk about it off the bat was just because
something must be wrong with the
sorry. I hadn't really been watching. Are you good? For some reason, I'm getting an echo.
It might be how Here, try talking now. It might be how my phone was sitting. Try now.
Testing. Let me try joining again.
Okay. I could kind of hear the echo, but I don't know if it was worse on his end. It might be his headphones, honestly, his earbuds. Could it be your earbuds?
Well, usually the earbuds are what stops it from doing the echo.
Okay.
But I think it's good now, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm going to try and set my phone down. If it does it again, then I think that might be the problem. I didn't want to hold my phone the entire time. That's why I kind of sat it down. I don't know if that's the echo. But
no, it's all good. I think it's all good now.
Okay. Yeah. Keep going with what you're saying.
I hadn't like watched the trial, so I wasn't like super educated on the evidence and everything, and I still haven't watched it, but I have tried to get up to date on all of the. I've watched multiple people talking about it, and I've looked through the evidence a little bit. So, but that was sort of my perspective. Is like with a trial that's as complex as this, I don't want to just jump in and be like, oh no, because I have seen takes from people on the left of them just jumping to these conclusions like there's no way it could be self-defense or that the judge must be a white supremacist or things like this, and not really knowing the evidence of what's going on before they jump in and give their takes on it. But I do agree with you that if I'm going to be giving my takes in the comment section, then why would I feel confident enough to do that but then not come and talk live about it? I think it's just I don't like love doing political debates because I'm not like a debater. I'm more of just a comedian, so I don't always love doing these debate type things. But I did agree with you once you explained yourself, like why would I be in the comment section but then not willing to actually sit down and talk about it. So then I was like, yeah, you make a fair point. So that's why I wanted to come and actually
Sure.
talk about it.
Okay, that's respectable, especially because I don't. There's some things that I feel like we could agree on, and I don't know if I don't even know what I would consider a debate. Like, you know, I mean, like most of these things that I've had with people, especially like Harry, a typical Democrat, like they've always been like really nice conversations. I mean, there's been
Yeah.
disagreement. So, I mean, you know, I didn't understand the resistance, but I can kind of see, especially like I know you see yourself more as a comedian, especially with like your main channel. So do you want to talk about your stuff, or you can talk about the I know you had a problem with the stochastic terrorism thing too. We can talk about that too, but I do want to talk about what you said. Some of the stuff you were saying in my comments, so we can talk about either.
Sure, yeah. Do you want to just first of all establish where you're coming from, like your perspective? You said that you don't see him as a hero, but then you think that he has the right to self-defense. And I would agree with you. I think that anyone should have the right to self-defense, but I think my perspective is it's definitely escalation once you're bringing AR-15s to a situation like this where it's not really, in my opinion, necessary. Like I think that he could have come, like if he really was just there to put out fires and to provide medical assistance, why did he have to like bring an AR-15 to the situation and just escalate everything? And I'm not approving of the other person who had brought a handgun either. I don't think in these sort of protests, people on either side should be bringing guns because that just escalates everything to a really unsafe situation. And then, you know, I'm not in favor of destruction of property either. So I'm not saying that I'm like endorsing the actions of either side, except that as someone who is on the left, I obviously am more in favor of civil rights protests for better treatment against police than I am going to be sympathetic to counter protests against that, you know.
Sure, sure. So there was a few questions you asked me. There's one thing I want to talk about. Why you said why bring a gun if he was just there for the fires and mad. I want to talk about that. But you asked a question or two at the beginning of that too. I want to address. Do you remember what you were asking me? You were basically asking me something about where am I coming from or something like that.
Yeah, just what is your perspective? Your perspective, you said that you think he should be able to defend himself, but you don't see him as a hero, but you think he should have the right to defend himself, which I don't disagree with either of those statements.
Okay. Yeah, well, the place I'm coming from is he shouldn't have been there. I mean, anyone who was there after curfew shouldn't have been there. It's a riot. It's not. It's why are you there? It doesn't make sense. It's not a good idea. So I don't think he should have been there. Don't think he should have had that gun. Obviously, in fact, I didn't think that they would dismiss that one charge of him being a minor with a gun because I thought honestly that was probably a fair conviction on that charge. So that's where I'm coming from. Is that I obviously
They dismissed it because of like hunting laws or something, like you can legally carry a gun if you're hunting, but I mean he obviously wasn't hunting, but I guess technically.
well I heard a video when I was going through some people's videos about. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, you went out for a second. I heard a video on TikTok of someone saying that got dismissed because of hunting laws. I don't think that's true because I watched some of the trial and I heard specifically what they were talking about. That I could be wrong, so someone can link me if I'm wrong. But I think the specific problem was that there is an exception. The law talks about hunting and open carrying in general, and there's an exception for hunting, but there's also an exception depending on if it's a long barrel rifle or if it's not a long barrel rifle. And they had talked about that earlier in the trial. So then they were able to dismiss that. So I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's because of hunting laws. But again, I could be wrong on that. So someone can link me. That part got a little muddy. But
Yeah, I'm not educated enough on that. I mean, my perspective would be I don't understand why it would be legal in Wisconsin for a 17-year-old to be open carrying an AR-15. I just don't. I mean, my perspective is that Wisconsin if you're under 18, there's no reason why you should be allowed to do that. So, but if it
I
is
would probably agree
technically,
with that, by the way. Sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
if it is technically legal in Wisconsin, then there's nothing you can do from a legal perspective.
Sure. Okay, so first off, does that clear up kind of where I'm coming from? I don't think he's a hero because there's no reason to call him a hero. All I support is his right to self-defense, which I think you said you agree with.
But do you support him being there in general? You said that you don't really think he should have been there in general.
No, I don't think he should have been there in general. I think if you're over the age of 18 and you go there, like, I mean, like, that's fine. I don't have any like, I wouldn't make any statements on whether you should or shouldn't be there if you're over the age of 18. So I don't know if I would say that, but yeah, I don't think he should have been there. Okay, so
yeah, my perspective is I'm obviously not going to be on the side of counter protesters because I am on the side of BLM and of BLM protests, but then the waters get muddy when BLM protests get escalated to the point where they are riots and there is property damage being done, because I don't approve of property damage, obviously. But then you have people like Kyle coming in and saying, "Oh, I'm just here to defend property," but then it's like, it's not even your property. Is the reason you're really here to defend property, or is it more that you're taking a stand against the BLM cause? And that's where you can't really know what the answer to that is, because he's going to just say, "Oh, I'm here to defend property,"
Sure. So, well, and I don't even know what they're saying in the case about defending property, because I think legally in that state you're not allowed to. Either way, morally, if it comes down to an 18-year-old who can't open carry or whatever, morally, I think you should be able to defend property, even if it's not your own. If it's your community, like, I think you have a right to do that. But we don't have to get into that. I know that could go off on a whole different thing, unless you want to go down that road. There's one thing you did say about why bring a gun if he was just there for fires and med. So I honestly would say, I wouldn't even say that he was just there for fires and med. I mean, maybe he said that on his while he was on while he was testifying. I think it's fair to assume that he was there to be a show of force for property, not necessarily to defend property, but be a show of force for property, and potentially, defend property. Which, again, like I said, morally, if you're 18 years old, like, go ahead, knock yourself out. But I think showing a force is okay.
But my perspective is, I don't think it's a positive thing when these protests have this cycle of escalation. Like, I'm not approving of the protests becoming violent and destroying property, but then I'm also not going to approve of militias showing up with AR-15s to be counter protesters, because when you escalate to that level, then Antifa is going to be like, okay, well, they're bringing AR-15s to the protest, so then we need to show up and bring AR-15s to the protest.
I don't see why anyone would bring an AR-15 to a BLM protest if they weren't racist. So I guess my question would be, like, do you think someone can't go to a riot or be an open show of force or defend property without being racist? I don't understand.
Yeah, I might walk that back. I mean, the difficult thing is that it has escalated to the point of being a riot. If it was just a peaceful protest, for BLM, and you just show up with an AR-15, I feel like, what would be your reasoning to be doing that other than to be saying that you're against the cause of BLM? And I personally, as a lefty, my perspective is that, like, people who are directly against the cause of Black Lives Matter, which in my opinion is just fighting for the civil rights of black people, if you are directly against that, then I would say that is racist in my perspective. But
okay.
But the whole fact that it was a riot and the destruction of property was happening, I do agree that kind of muddies the waters.
Yeah. So if they were like a group that was there, like, I don't want to necessarily say Proud Boys or anything like that, because I don't know enough about Proud Boys. But if there was a group there that was just marching the streets with guns, saying some ridiculous stuff back at them, and it was an obvious counter protest while this, like, even if the riot was going on, if there was an obvious counter protest, I'd be a bit more skeptical. The fact that it was a riot, and after all of this whole summer we'd had riots like crazy, and then we have this group that's that's like defending property or being an open show of force of property. In even some cases, some of these people are like helping some of the other protesters, like with like wounds or whatever. I don't. For me, that's just not enough to say like these people are racist, or even like close to it, I guess.
Had you seen the picture? Had you seen the picture of where he seems to be like doing the white power symbol?
So this is I know you're not saying this necessarily, but some people brought this to the attention that like, oh, like obviously he was racist at the time of this happening. He was obviously like being a counter protest at the time of this happening because of like the Proud Boy thing and the like white power symbol. But that happened afterwards. So it very well could be the case. It's probably more likely that he did become very yikesy after the fact, because that's when the Proud Boy thing happened. But I don't know if we have enough evidence to say that before this happened that he was legitimately like racist or like flirting like with white supremacy, like whatever. I don't know if we have that.
So all the evidence is only afterwards. I mean, my perspective is, if I feel like you have to be somewhat radicalized if you're getting to the point where you are showing up and putting your life in danger with, and bringing an AR as someone who is 17, and the fact that he is on video saying that he hopes or that he wishes he had his AR so he could shoot at people. It feels unlikely to me that he hadn't at least been influenced by those like online alt-right groups, but I mean, yeah, I guess speculation if we don't have concrete evidence.
Well, my problem with that is if like you gotta try and put yourself in someone's shoes. Like if you were someone who like is very tied to a certain community, and you feel like your community is being burned down, like,
and he did have his dad actually did live in Kenosha, and he had ties to that community. Because I do feel like that's disingenuous that people were like, oh, he just showed up to a random community, where like he had actually lived in Kenosha at one point and his dad lived in Kenosha, so it wasn't just like. I do agree it's a little bit more sympathetic if you're like defending your own community. Like if someone was going and trying to burn the businesses right next to where I live, I would be like, hey, like I use those businesses, like I don't really want them burned, So I can see some level of sympathy to that.
Yeah, if there was some other evidence other than like like thin blue line stuff on his Facebook, if there was some other evidence where he was going out before that night saying something like, I can't believe these stupid BLM yada yada and like some other yikesy stuff are burning down our community, I'm gonna go be a good old boy or whatever, I think that would be even much more evidence than what we have now, which is like nothing. It's just like we know that this is a community he was tied to. He didn't like that it was being burned down. He went and showed up with a gun. I mean, I obviously think it was an idiotic thing to do, but I don't know if that. For me, that's just not enough proof that he was like radicalized to the point where he would be like a racist or something.
I mean, for me, the video of him saying, I wish I had my AR so I could shoot people, one, and the picture of him flashing the white power symbol, to me, that would be enough evidence for me to assume that his motivation for being there wasn't just like, because if someone was like, oh, I support the cause of BLM, but I don't support the destruction of my community, then that would be one thing. But if he's like, oh, I wish I could just shoot these people, and there's a picture of him flashing white power, like I feel like for me that's enough evidence to say that I think this is not a good dude.
So you say that's enough evidence. The video, I can understand that could be evidence. Again, it's not enough evidence for me. But how can the like Proud Boys thing be enough evidence for you when it happened after the fact, after all of these people had like gone crazy saying crazy stuff about him? There was people that even thought that like he shot black people, which is not true. Like it's, I'm obviously I wouldn't go this far, but I could understand
so you're
arguing.
you're saying that he could have been radicalized after the fact because of how negative the response was.
Yeah, if you're a right-leaning person and you just love cops or whatever, you're like this good old country boy or whatever, love your community or whatever, and then you go out and you have this like life-altering experience, this traumatic whatever, and then like you have all these people basically saying like that you're like some crazy racist or whatever, and saying crazy stuff about how you shot black people, which is not even true, like saying all other kinds of things that weren't true. I could understand how that would like radicalize you. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but like I could see that happening, and it makes sense.
Yeah, but you also have to understand that the media didn't necessarily have all the evidence at that point. I mean, no one should have been spreading the idea that he was shooting black people because that's obvious, but
Sure.
at that point all that they knew was that people were shot at the protest. They didn't have all the evidence of whether or not it was self-defense, I feel like. And
Well,
I do agree that people
go ahead.
take a narrative and then they run too far with it, and then that does end up having the other side be like, you're painting a false picture of us by pushing a narrative that is inaccurate, and then like, okay, well then that just proves that they're all liars, so then I'm gonna get radicalized further down my hole. Like I don't think that I do think it is an issue when the media does run with something without getting all the facts correct, because then that makes everyone think, oh, the media is just a bunch of liars, you know.
Well, so yeah, the thing that you said that kind of teed me off is that the media didn't have enough information, and I don't even know if I'd blame this on like mainstream media. I don't even think they did. I mean, unless there's probably some articles that were yikesy or whatever, but that always happens. I mean, I'm specifically talking about this. All these other people that were all over the internet saying like insane stuff about him. When we have videos that, like, at the very least, show that he probably was not like an active shooter. I think that's probably enough to like make a person go a little further right than they were before if they were the person that was in that experience.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that. It's a tough thing because from the perspective of the people on the left, if they're thinking like, oh, this was a protest for civil rights and then people got shot at the protest for civil rights, then they're gonna instantly jump to these conclusions. But I do agree that the more people instantly jump to conclusions that they shouldn't be, the more it makes the left seem dishonest, for sure.
Okay. Alrighty. I'm trying to think where to go after this. But yeah, that's where my main contention is with the analysis of him before the thing, based on evidence of what he did after, when but the video that you were talking about, I think you have more ground to stand on with the video of him talking about shoplifters or whatever. I think that's fair to say you have a little bit more ground there for sure.
I mean, I don't. You really think someone could go from like not being racist at all to like flashing white power symbols within the course of just I don't know how long afterwards that was taken, but I feel like he was definitely being radicalized before that. But I mean,
well,
again, this is all just speculation.
Well, if he was so radicalized, why wouldn't we see more evidence of it? I mean, we have people like sifted through his like Facebook and all other sorts of things trying to find something, and like the most they could come up with is like Thin Blue Line. I mean, like I feel like if he was actually that radicalized even before the event, we would have seen. We had, what was he? 17. We had 17 years worth of this kid, on the internet, and we don't have anything that indicates, I mean, the first thing that we got of him like showing some type of radicalization was him. Oh, you're cutting out for a second. Like that. Oh, here he is. Hey, there you are.
Hey, sorry about that. My phone died.
I guessed it. I had a feeling that your phone had died.
Yeah, well, I wanted to make sure to use the headphones so that I wasn't echoing, but then my phone died because of it. So
Okay. Is it echoing pretty bad? I don't know if picking it up off the table will do much, but
no, I think it's okay now. I think we're good.
okay. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out where we were. We were talking about the I can't remember. I remember saying that if we actually believe that he was so radicalized or so racist, I feel like we would have had some evidence. I remember saying that. I don't know if that was the last thing I was saying or what, but you guys
Yeah, I just think it's tough because it's a lot of speculation. Because if he was smart, he wouldn't, put openly racist things on the internet. But like, why like, first of all, do you think that him hanging out with Proud Boys and flashing the OK symbol, like, it doesn't seem like he was just saying like A-OK. Like, it seems like he was posing it in a way
right.
where it definitely seems like.
Sure. So what I would say, and this is what I was telling Chad while you were gone. So, well, number one, still, I don't think this has any bearing on his thoughts beforehand, or we don't know if it has any bearing. I think we would need some more evidence before we could say. But speaking on that specifically, so the OK sign, I think has become such a meme that I wouldn't necessarily call it a white power symbol unless we had people that we knew that were kind of dog whistling it. But I would say, if you know that this symbol, this OK symbol, has a yikesy past and people will interpret it as a white symbol or a white power symbol, then you shouldn't use it. So I don't know if he was using it to be racist or if he was hanging out with the Proud Boys to be racist. I don't know what he knows about the Proud Boys. Even if we're going to say, oh, he's not actually a racist, even if we could tell his thoughts and say, he's not racist or whatever, it's a very ridiculously stupid thing to go out and hang out with them and then start flashing a symbol that's very controversial. I don't think you should do it. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, that's what I would say.
And it's definitely not going to paint you in a positive light.
Exactly.
I mean,
sure.
at this point, the conversation is pretty much that we agree it was self-defense in the moment, and then it's us speculating on whether or not, like, he is a racist or not, or how bad of a person he is. Because, like I said, I'm just never gonna be like agreeing with people who have the whole Blue Lives Matter mentality. I'm not necessarily against people supporting police officers, but when you are openly saying Blue Lives Matter, in my opinion, that is in response to Black Lives Matter, because the idea is that you think that the Black Lives Matter people are being ridiculous with the claims that they're making, so I'm going to take the side of the police officers. So that's why, ideologically, from the get-go, no matter how radicalized he was, I'm not going to agree with him as a person. But the situation is just very complicated because of the fact that it was a riot and there was property damage happening, which I don't agree with.
So there, we don't have to go on this right now. We can if you want to, or we can do this at a later date. I don't care. I don't know if I think you said something about, if you do agree with Blue Lives Matter, you are racist. I would disagree with that. Or wait, I think I said that right. If you agree with Blue Lives Matter, a thin blue line, then you are racist. I would disagree with that statement. We don't have to go into that right now, but
I don't think that thin blue line necessarily means that you're racist. I don't think standing up for police officers or defending police officers necessarily means that you're racist. But I think using Blue Lives Matter as a response to Black Lives Matter, like, why would you delegitimize the cause of Black Lives Matter unless you disagreed with, I don't know. Well, I do agree that, like, labeling people as either racist or white supremacist, it can take away from actually being able to get to the core of the issues, because then we're just debating about the definitions of racist or the definitions of white supremacist. Sure. I just in general am not going to be on the side of the people who are counter protesting against a movement that I think is very important,
Oh, and I would agree with that. My problem is that I think it's ridiculous, to side with like Blue Lives Matter when it's a counter protest to, I mean, any counter protest is kind of silly in itself. Um, the thing I have with Blue Lives Matter is that like you said something about like why would you be like part of a counter protest unless like I don't know you had like my problem is that like I know a lot of people who are just like your like mainstream like normal neocon whatever conservatives, and reason they would support Blue Lives Matter it's not because like they don't think like there should be better. Is it echoing a lot on your end? It's echoing a little bit on my end.
Oh, it's okay on my end.
Okay, it's okay. It's not bothering me, but I just want to make sure. It's honestly it comes down to like a disagreement of like realities, which is like a lot of our problems right now. And I would agree, it is a big problem. I mean, we have this problem with like COVID and the election. Obviously, it's like a disagreement of like it's two fundamental different views of reality. And so if you are someone who like doesn't believe that there's actual like problems with policing and when it comes to black people, of course you're gonna like be against that. But so that's kind of where I stand, I guess. I just don't think if you are
Yeah.
Blue Lives Matter, then you might be racist. I'm not saying you are necessarily saying that, but that's where I believe.
I think a lot of Blue Lives Matter people are racist in my perspective, but I don't want to label every single one of them as racist because people can be coming from different. I mean, that depends on the whole. I mean, the definition of racist is extremely complicated. I mean, have you seen people on the left being like, every white person is racist because we all like contribute to white supremacy? And then it's like, okay, well, maybe, but that's the definitions of all these things get so like confusing, I feel like.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and then kind of what you're saying with that, a lot of people will use or will use these types of definition or these words so loosely that like the definitions become so confusing. Like they might even, a lot of these words really probably aren't even that confusing, their definitions beforehand, but like people have used them to such a crazy extent that like now we kind of have a confusing definition because what does it actually mean to be this or that, because people have fundamental disagreements on like what it even means, I guess.
What the word means. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is true that we are in such a time where people can't even agree on the basic reality of what's going on. And then, yeah, if someone doesn't even agree with the concept that black people are being unjustly treated by police, then yeah, they would be like, well, that's not even happening. So I'm going to say that I stand up for blue lives.
Yeah, sure. Okay, there was one other question I had. I think this will only take a second if you're still down. And then if you wanted to talk about my stochastic terrorism take, we can a little bit if you want. I don't know how much time you have or whatever. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'd be curious to talk through that.
Okay, that's cool. That's fine. The first question I have real quick before we get into that. I know you said something about self-defense, and I think you actually said you do support his right to self-defense. So maybe this doesn't apply, but I just want to make sure. You said there was a tweet I saw of you where you said you have to be an effing idiot to side with the dude who brought an assault rifle to a protest. So I guess would you say that you support his right to self-defense? I know you said something also about how you don't think people should be open carrying. But yeah, I guess.
Well, I don't think 17-year-olds should be open carrying ARs.
Sure.
The question of whether or not adults should be open carrying ARs, I don't know. I don't even know what my perspective is on that. So I support his right to self-defense. I think anytime someone is actively attacking you or has a gun pointed to your head, you should be able to defend yourself. I just don't think that he should have brought the AR as a 17-year-old, which when you bring something like that to such a highly heated situation, it's going to do nothing but escalate the situation even more, I mean, maybe he believed that having an AR was the only way to truly defend the property or whatever, but I don't know.
Okay. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that response. You wanna ask me? you want to ask me questions, or do you want me to explain my take, or?
Yeah, well, your stochastic terrorism, I get where you're coming from with it, but it feels like you could label so many different people as stochastic terrorists that it kind of feels like it kind of feels like hyperbolic to label someone as a stochastic terrorist, because people on both the left and the right do that kind of thing all the time where they demonize either side, you know, like demonizing Joe Biden or demonizing Trump or demonizing this or that. To then label all those people as terrorists feels a little bit hyperbolic to me.
Well, sure, but I wouldn't say that about people who are just like criticizing or whatever, you know, Joe Biden or Trump. So like, for instance, like, and there's only like specific people on this app or online or whatever that I would say this about. And that's why I think in my video I didn't say everyone I'm mentioning as stochastic terrorism or whatever. So so like, for instance, let me give an example. I guess, would you probably agree that the stuff that Trump said in that rally could be considered stochastic terrorism for the riot that happened like just like seconds after or minutes after, I guess?
I would say yeah, because while he wasn't like directly saying to do it, it felt like he was inciting that violence. Sure. I do think statements that incite violence would be stochastic terrorism. Yeah.
Okay. Well, for the people in chat that are saying what riot, we're talking about January 6th. So I would agree with that. Okay. I don't know if he should be charged with like terrorism or something like that, because I think that gets a little bit more muddy. But like when we're talking about stochastic terrorism, I think that applies as well, which we agree on, which is cool. So the problem I have with certain people on this app is that they seem to be talking in almost the same vein, because we have, so I don't know if you know the older dude, some political dude. You know him?
I'm not sure.
He's like, okay, well, he's like the older, I know a lot of people in my chat might know him. He's like that older dude who like always dresses up as like a MAGA guy or whatever. That dude is like one step away from like calling for left-wing violence, unironically. There's people on here that are saying things that are like, that I would say rise to the level of this, saying stuff that like talking about how our system in it is like so broken in a way that it's like that we're allowing people to just get off for like blatantly like racist things or whatever. That's the type of stuff I think could totally be labeled as stochastic terrorism. Would you disagree with that, or?
I think it's difficult to figure out where that line is. I have seen people on TikTok being like, they're not going to listen to us unless we burn down buildings. So the riots are good because no one's going to listen unless we're destroying things. Like at that point, I would feel like that is stochastic terrorism, because you're saying like, we need to be destroying things. We need to, like, violence needs to be happening. Otherwise, like, no one's going to listen to us. At that point, I would say it. I wouldn't say that like just labeling things as racist would be stochastic terrorism. It might be disingenuous and it might be overstepping, but I wouldn't like go to the point of labeling it stochastic terrorism.
Well, see, the first example you gave, like, oh, like the riots are good, like people should go out and burn stuff. Like, I wouldn't even call that stochastic terrorism. That's just like a call to violence, right? But like, and then like your other example, I wouldn't agree with either, because I think you kind of downplayed a little bit. I'm not just saying like people are calling like the system race or something racist or whatever. People are acting specifically with this case, that this case is so compromised and so racist that we are now setting a precedent that anyone who's white in this type of situation that like, you know, wants to be anti-BLM or whatever, they're always going to get off because the system is so broken and so racist. If you are someone who's left wing and you believe in this thing because of rhetoric like that, your only other like conclusion is to like burn the system down. I mean, why else would you live in a system that's so broken that like people are going to get off in that manner?
Yeah, but there are multiple avenues that people can take if they feel like the system is broken. Like you can, through electoralism, fix things, or through, you know, I don't know. I guess I wouldn't label something as, It is it's just difficult to figure out where that line is, as far as like what is the line where you cross where your actions are going to end up leading to violence, and are you responsible if something that you said leads to violence? I think it's a difficult question to answer.
I think it's difficult too. I think it's a hard line to draw too. That's why I wouldn't apply it to every single left-leaning person that is saying crazy stuff. I think it only applies to a handful of people, but there are
people that so yeah, like what would be an instance where you definitely would think that you would label it like that?
So, like for instance, there's some political dude or whatever. I saw a video. Oh my gosh! Now the echo's bothering me. He made a video like 3 days ago. Hold on. Can anyone else in my chat? Can you guys hear the echo? Is it bad for you guys?
It's okay for me.
It's actually so frustrating.
I'm sorry.
No.
I would have my headphones in, but I have to be charging my phone.
Bad, yeah. It doesn't sound like it's that bad anymore, guys. Okay, I think we're good. All right. So he made like a video 3 days ago or whatever, talking about how we like I think it's pretty clear that Kyle's gonna get off at this point, and then like he says this sets a bad precedent that anyone who now wants to defend property can go out and just start firing shots at anyone who is rioting or something like that. And the only like logical conclusion to that is basically that now left-wing people are going to go out there with guns as well, and now it's going to be warfare in the streets. That is something I think is getting way too close to what is to being a problem. Would you disagree? Agree?
Well, I would agree that people bringing AR-15s to protests, no matter what side they're on, is an escalation. And that if one side has brought AR-15s, then it makes the other side feel like they need to bring AR-15s. It's kind of like with nuclear warfare, that like once one country has a nuke, then every other country feels like they have to have nukes, because then, then they can defend themselves, basically. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't agree with if he's saying that Kyle is seen as innocent because of self-defense, that means that everyone needs to start bringing AR-15s to protests or something. Is that what he's saying?
So the problem I have with what he's saying is that, oh man, okay. So it's not you. It's bothering me. The problem I have with what he's saying is that he is acting as though, or he's saying in this video as though, because of the results of this case, what's going to happen is that we're now going to have a bad precedent where not that riots are going to happen and then necessarily, people are just going to go out and like defend those riots, and then it's going to cause problems, because that was already something that was going on. Mm-hmm. He was saying that basically the conclusion of this case is going to be that we're going to have right-wing groups go out there to like defend property by shooting at anyone he was saying that like we are going to have people actually start shooting all the time at people in defense of property, and that's going to cause warfare, which I think is a problem. That's the problem.
Well, yeah, because that's different than what happened, because Kyle was defending himself in this case. It wasn't just open firing at the crowd. I do think that this case is going to be a rallying cry for a lot of these right-wing militias, that they are going to possibly say, okay, now we need to show up to every protest with AR-15s. I mean, that's speculation of whether or not that's going to happen. But the fact that the situation with Kyle did turn out the way that it did, but I don't think it's evidence that people are just going to start open firing on people.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I would agree. If you're peddling these conspiracy theories about the judge and about how the system is broken, I don't know if I would necessarily call that stochastic terrorism, but you're getting into some iffy territory, I think. So I don't know if I would draw that line there, but I think I think you're doing some bad stuff there. Would you?
I mean, most people think that systems are broken in one way or another. I mean, I guess liberals are kind of the ones who think that the system is working, but but people on the right think that the whole like I'm not labeling that as a negative thing. I'm just saying that like a lot of
I
times
knew it was going to come out at some point, Ryan. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just saying that usually more like right-wing people are like, oh, the entire system of big pharma is broken, and the entire system of, like people on the right think systems are broken. People on the left think the system of capitalism is broken. Like I wouldn't say that like labeling certain systems as broken, it could be labeled as like terrorism. But if you're like, this system is broken, and so the only inevitable thing that can happen is violence, then I would be like, okay, yeah, then I would say that's like taking it too far.
And that's why I said, if you are, that's why I would say if you are peddling these type of conspiracies, I wouldn't necessarily say that is stochastic terrorism, but I think you're getting to iffy territory. Because, for instance, just saying that a system is broken is not necessarily bad. But if you start escalating that more and more, that could be a problem, because that's what happened with Trump, right? I mean, and the Trumpies, I guess. They were saying that the system was so broken that now we need to go and fix things. And that's when Trump basically said what he said, and that led to. And so obviously I wouldn't say everyone who was talking about the election fraud was enacting stochastic terrorism, but talking about that system being broken and escalating that rhetoric so much led to, I think, Trump talking about stochastic terrorism. So that's why I think if you are talking about conspiracy theories like this, about the judge and whatnot, in cases like this, I think you're getting into some bad territory. I don't think these conspiracy theories are helpful in any way.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think both the right and the left needs to make sure that everything they're saying is grounded in fact and grounded in reality. Because once you start pushing rhetoric that is not grounded in fact or reality, then because it does make sense that the natural response, like if the entire system is broken and everyone is against you, then it's like, the founding fathers, that's why they gave us the Second Amendment, so we could like stand up against a corrupt government or whatever. So that's why you have to be really careful that you are basing things in fact and reality, because when Trump is painting this narrative that the election was stolen when it wasn't, then it is a natural response that would lead to violence. And I do think that happens on the left, where people are like, okay, well, the policing system is broken, so the only natural thing that we can do is then start rioting and destroying property. And then it's like, okay, well, I don't know if that's necessarily the right answer either.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of that. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Someone's saying, are you saying we limit free speech? No, I'm not saying we limit free speech. I'm saying that we hold people accountable and criticize people when they spread misinformation. I'm not saying that the government should be able to come in and like say, oh, you posted something that wasn't true, so you're going to go to prison for it or something.
Wait, maybe I'm just an idiot, because like I said, I haven't been on TikTok Live in a while. Are our chats, are they linked right now?
Yeah, I'm in your chat. I'm not live right now. I'm just on your live stream.
Oh, okay. I see how that. Okay, that makes sense. Interesting. I didn't know how this worked. Okay.
Yeah, I think you can do it where you both go live and then you're together, or you can do it where I'm just a guest on your stream.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, because you said something about the free speech, and I was like, how did he see that in his chat? That was in my chat too.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I've seen your chat the whole time.
Okay, blew my mind. All right. Anyway, is there anything else you want to talk about?
I guess just closing up, like what do you think are like the disagreements? I think where we are going to disagree is, I think I would be more quick to lay a negative judgment on him as a person based on the evidence that I've seen, and then I think you might be a little bit more conservative to lay that negative judgment because you haven't seen enough evidence. And I don't think we're necessarily going to come to an agreement on that. But I think that's sort of where we're both at.
Yeah, and to be clear, I would lay much more of a negative look on him now than I would back then. I think he was an idiot back then, but I think now you can levy some more criticisms on his character, based on like the Proud Boy stuff or whatever. But yeah, okay.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for talking things through, man. I appreciate getting to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, for sure. It was a good conversation. Yeah, I respect a lot of your takes on this specifically. I think is really good. So
yeah, and I think I definitely fall into the issue of being more radical with my takes, and then once you actually sit down, then you kind of you kind of walk back some things, and you're like, yeah, that was a little too extreme. So
sure.
I definitely do think that I need to make sure I've fully thought through things before I go to an extreme level. So
No, I understand. I think all of us do that. Also, I have a question real quick before you go.
mm-hmm.
Why? And maybe I'm just an idiot. Why do you call yourself MrBeard if you don't have a beard?
My last name is Beard.
Oh, okay, that makes much more sense. Maybe I just didn't know that. I don't know how I didn't.
I kind of like confusing people with that, but no, my actual name is Beard, so that's why it's Mr. Beard, even though I don't have one.
Okay, well, you should probably grow one then.
I can't grow one. I only get like basically my face looks like it's covered in pubes when I try to grow one. So
cool, that's awesome. All right,
yeah.
All right then. I'll talk to you at some point, I guess. Maybe.
All right. Awesome. Sounds good, man. Have a good one.
All right. See ya.